for another Wednesday hanging out together. It always makes it feel like I can get through the middle of the week because I know I'm going to be talking with both of you and everyone that joins us, and it kind of makes Wednesdays feel like an uplifting day rather than the dreaded middle of the week. We're going to have a fantastic talk tonight, I think. Mindy, thank you again for putting together our graphics, as always. We're going to kind of start to discuss some historical fiction books that we love. There will still be a touch of Jane Austen, and we'll be sharing a fun fact about her as well this evening, but just more of a hangout sort of chit-chatty night tonight, talking about some books that we love. I don't think there's anything better to do than talk about books with both of you. So why don't we go ahead and start out as we normally do. And my name is Melissa. I'm the community manager. I realized I forgot to say that last time. Welcome to any of you that are joining us. And we'll start out, as we always do, with what we're reading currently for tonight. So Marigold, at least on my camera, you're to the side of me here. So why don't we start with what you're reading this week?
I was going to say, well, I'm Marigold, and I have to remember what I'm reading now because I, of course, started two different things. So I'm halfway, I think, through the book Eater.
Oh, yeah, that one.
So not what I expected. Might be actually starting to look at books with descriptions before I start reading. Because it was not my cup of tea, but I'm going to get through it. And my other one, I'm trying to remember what the other one is. Oh, no. Actually, the other one I'm listening to, I just started. And it's coming up. Come on. Oh, it's the Cursed Objects. Try to see if they have it. That's what it looks like.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But that one just looked interesting. It popped up, and I'm like, oh, we'll try something different. Since I was in this mood with the book eaters, I was like, I'll listen to something different.
How many audiobooks do you typically make it through in a week?
Some weeks are different. Like I'll do one or two, but if I am again like designing a lot or I have a lot of like downtime, then I can get to like 3.
Love it. I was reading something and somebody was talking about how when they started listening to audiobooks, how many more books they were able to get to in a year. And I was like, I'm going to turn myself into an audiobook listener one way or another. I'm just still struggling with audiobook listening and being able to focus while I am listening to the books and not just wandering. But I'm going to keep trying. You're going to convince me to go ahead and do it.
Remember, I like reading with it. So it's like I'm listening and I'm looking at it. So it's not just listening. So, I mean, when I design stuff, I can listen to it if it's not too complicated for keeping track of things. But I really like to like read the book with the listening to it because it really gets that other perspective.
Do you have a trick to add like 3 or 4 hours to my day?
I would, because I'd like to know that too.
I really love that idea, though. I just finished, I'll tell you my book that I just finished, and I actually have the audiobook for it. So I'm going to go back and try it together to see if I like that style.
Absolutely. You don't need sleep. Who needs to sleep? No. That's good, like 6 hours there.
Right. Mindy, what are you enjoying this week?
Well, I'm usually like Marigold, where I can do about 1 audiobook a week. But this last week, I was in the car a lot because I was doing like a bookstore hop through South Florida, through the Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater area. And so I was in the car way longer than I should have been on Friday. So this week, I got through 3 audiobooks. One of them, it's great because you're both going to talk about it tonight. It is The Personal Librarian. So I know you both enjoyed that. You recommended it. So I made sure to listen to it this week. And then I did, Melissa, because you recommended, you love your Emily Henry girl. I did Happy Place. And I loved it right up till the very end. And then the very end made me cry.
That's the only one I haven't got to yet, so I'm gonna have to read it.
Okay, it was really good. It was the kind of book that I thought, oh, this would make a fantastic movie. So maybe
I think
someday.
some of hers have been optioned, I believe. So we'll see if we get them in the next few years.
It was good. And then the one I just finished yesterday was by a new to me author. I know she's not new, but I had not discovered her until Sunday, I think it was. Lisa Unger. She actually lives here in Florida, but the book was called The New Couple in 5B, and it's a thriller. And the beginning had notes of Rosemary's Baby, so it was all kinds of spooky and fun. And it was one of those that I did not want to sleep because I wanted to keep reading, keep listening. So I've had a really rich book week, and I'm so happy about that.
I love it. That is like all across the board. Historical fiction, little romance to thriller. I love it.
That's how I roll.
I love that you're so good about supporting local authors as well. You always are great to mention those and highlight those as well, which is really fun. I don't know. There's like this weird kinship you feel when you see that there's a book from somebody that lives in your area, and it's like an inspiring moment to see like, oh, somebody that's near me wrote this. It's really great for kids too. My son, we had Margaret Peterson Haddix. I don't know if you're familiar with any of her books. She's a very popular middle grade-ish author. She actually lives about 20 minutes from us. So we've been able to see her about 3 times. And then R.L. Stine, who we all grew up with, Goosebumps, he lived about 30 minutes away and never does events. And we were able to get to the one event that he did. And we waited about 3 hours in line to meet him. And then he told my son Dylan that he was son Dylan. Yeah, so it was totally worth it for the pictures and just meeting him. So yeah, it's really fun to like meet local authors or authors that you really enjoy reading their books. It just adds another little bit of specialness to it. So I'm glad you were able to enjoy some of the recs that Marigold and I had this week. And we're always getting ones from you as well. Like our piles just keep growing the more that we do these talks and we see what everybody else has. I just started a new book tonight called The Plot Twist. And I was channeling a little bit of Marigold, and I didn't go back and reread the blurb. It's actually an arc that I've had on my Kindle for a little while. So all I know so far is that she is a author. She's written 7 books, and now she has major writer's block trying to write her 8th book. So we will see what happens. It is a romance, I know that, and we'll see where it goes from there. And then I finished last night Deep End by Allie Hazelwood. I think I had mentioned that last week, the one that I picked up that I have been kind of not grabbing. Really pretty cover. I will say probably my least favorite of all of hers. The writing is still great. She's an amazing author, but the story is more of a YA college romance, and they weren't together very often as like a couple throughout the book. So I think it's definitely one of those like everybody has their own tropes and styles that they enjoy. So I wouldn't say it was a bad book at all. It just wasn't my favorite out of all of her romances. So, but that one took me a little while since last week to get through. So we'll see how quick the next one goes. And we have book club coming up. We'll be sharing about that. There's so many books to get to, so we better get going. Let's go ahead and start hopping through our Celebrating Women's History Month, Jane Austen Literacy Foundation community. Anyone that's joining us as well, whether it's live now or afterwards, let us know what you're reading for this week. It's really fun to see what other people are doing. If you're as varied in your reading as Mindy is and you're all over the place, that's fun to see as well. If you're like Marigold and you picked up the book and you have no clue what it was going to be about, you're totally surprised, or if you're like me and you're very predictable in your reading, go ahead and let us know that as well. So we thought we'd start a new feature on here, and every week we'll be sharing a little bit of either something that Jane Austen was up to in her life or something that the characters had going on throughout the stories that match the timeline of where we're at. So our first one is here on this date in Jane Austen's life on March 5th, 1814, Jane Austen sees Edmund Kean in the role of Shylock in Merchant of Venice at Drury Lane. She writes to her sister admiringly of Kean's performance, but criticizes that the parts were ill-filled and the play heavy. I found this little blurb to be fascinating. Like, I wish I could be there and just have seen what that performance looked like. I had this split-second thought of, let me look it up on YouTube. Clearly, there was no YouTube videos about what was going on. But I thought it would be interesting to see. That's one if I've seen that Shakespeare play, it's been a long time. So I thought it would be neat to experience what she was seeing while she was there.
Well, I've done a little bit of research on this time period in the theater and the actors and actresses. And, Edmund Kean was the most renowned actor of this day. So the fact that Jane Austen got to see him is, first of all, really amazing. I mean, I know he enacted plenty of roles, but it's just kind of interesting to think that she was in a theater where the most famous actor of that day was performing. I mean, all these great geniuses in the same room,
Absolutely.
But as you both know, I love Shakespeare. And for me, The Merchant of Venice, just in and of itself, is a heavy play that I can definitely see sitting in the audience thinking it was a little bit, just one of those you'd like the time to pass quickly.
A lot.
I wonder if it gave her any inspiration, though, if she took anything away from the play when she saw it. It's really funny the way you said that, too, of like her being there as he's performing. And it's almost like, I was thinking of different performances that were so like pop culturally, everyone was going to see them. So like Phantom of the Opera, I feel like that's such a popular one that a lot of people have seen when it's touring around in their areas or seen a performance, or Les Miserables, like so many. And like that was kind of for Austen's time period, like, oh, I went to see this play that everyone is touring around watching, and is really fascinating to think of her just hanging out at the play watching see some Shakespeare. All right, let's dive into the books that we love and we want to share with everyone, so that maybe you'll add them to your TBR as well. And Marigold, your picks are up first, so tell us a little bit about yours and why you love them so much.
Okay, well, the first one, The Lioness of Boston, is about Isabella Stewart Gardner. And I not only love the museum because I'm in Boston, or I'm outside of Boston, but close enough that I have visited multiple times and I could live in it. It's the most beautiful museum I've been to. And I've been to Italy, and there's a lot of them, but it's actually so funny how it's an Italian palazzo style museum that opened up in 1903. And I loved going to Italy, but it's my own little Italy here, so it's really nice. But the book deals with her relationships, travel, and tragedies that led to her transforming Boston and the art world. I love how the book shows how she found her voice in society and her purpose in life, which becomes the creation of the museum. And I wanted to read this small little quote that I had, because I think it also reminded me of Austen a little bit, which is, I found the urge to apologize. Why did women continually do so? As though we'd be conditioned from birth to apologize for our very presence. It just sounds like that from Austen about every time some kind of like presses her down, she strives for, she just like makes her stronger. And so that's why it made me think of it. And then the other book is The Personal Library, which now we've all read. It is wonderful. And it is about Bella de Costa Green and how she became the personal librarian of J.P. Morgan. She was hired to curate his collection of rare books, manuscripts, and art. She became a prominent figure in New York society, in the art world. But she had a secret that she couldn't tell her identity. And so the book unfolds and it has you kind of keeping her secret. So it's very interesting. And I just enjoy these very prominent, strong women books that are very inspiring.
Yeah. I haven't read The Lioness of Boston, but you saying that little bit kind of gave me Elizabeth Bennet vibes, in the way that it was written. Yeah. I love it. Those two are great recommendations. Mindy, we've got your picks. What do you have for us?
My first pick is Mermaids. And I'm not sure if either of you have ever watched the film Mermaids. I would say that it's probably more famous than the book. It's the lead actresses in it are Winona Ryder, Christina Ricci as a child. I mean, she's like 5 or 6 years old. And then Cher is the lead actress. And this book is fantastic. It's a coming of age story. And it's one of those where, for me, not that I relate to any of the characters whatsoever, but in the plot, there's a moment where JFK is assassinated. And it's that feeling where everybody is so struck, and it's like their entire lives changed because of this event. And when I reread it as an adult, I thought, this is so, like, for me, I was in college when 9/11 occurred, and I'm not sure that I'll ever forget, like, the conversation I was having and what happened directly there afterward. And so I really feel like this book, it just so beautifully captures that coming of age feeling, but also the life impact the current events can have on people. And if you've never seen the movie, this is one of those films that is just as good as the book. You could probably read the book in a day. I mean, it flies by super fast. And then you can watch the movie afterwards, and it'll just be like one tremendous Saturday. So my second pick, though, is one I actually did love from childhood. You can maybe see how old my book is, because it's a library discard from when I was maybe like in third grade. Because I'm that kid, right? Like, I'm that third grader who would have been picking these off my little library cart to bring home with me. But The Witch of Blackbird Pond, I love stories that contain witches. I just can't help it. I do. I won't pretend that it's a guilty pleasure, because I don't feel any guilt about it whatsoever. But this one is a bit of YA. The main character is Kit Catherine. She was from Barbados, where she lived with her rather wealthy grandfather. And when he dies, she has to go live with her Puritan-esque family in colonial America. And from the moment she is outside the harbor and jumps in the water and swims, it's just a catastrophe, because women aren't supposed to swim at that time period. So right then and there, she comes under scrutiny. And I just love what she endures and how she befriends the other outsiders in her community. And again, this is another one that you could share it with someone younger in your life and they would enjoy it, or you could sit down and read it and it would take like a day, because it runs so smoothly.
When was that one published?
Oh,
I know
goodness.
I read it. It has been so long, I don't remember anything about it, but I know it was like one that my mom always mentioned. And I'm wondering if she read it when she was younger, or if it was just we had it in our house in our library.
1958.
So my mom must have read it then when she was younger, because I know she had an older copy in our library. Yeah, that's a great pick.
I didn't know Mermaid was a book.
Yes.
That's so cool. I love the movie, but I didn't even know it was a book.
I've heard of the movie, but I've never seen it. So apparently now I need to clear off my schedule for Saturday. These recommendations. I'm watching a movie and read a book. All right, I have my little stack over here of my books. Address of Violet Taffeta. We did this one I had read it before. We did it for a book club a while ago, because it's just such a good book that I think everyone would really enjoy it. So we have, I'm going to read a little bit from the back here. We have the true story of Lucy Lady Duff Gordon. She was on the Titanic. She was divorced. It's just like, if you want one of those kind of, if you like Gilded Age sort of vibes, and all the scandals, and a woman that just had a crazy life, that it was a real story. Hers is fantastic. She had a very abusive husband. She created kind of like a boutique sort of. She was styling dresses for these women, very entrepreneurial in how she had it all come to pass. And then she and a later husband were on the Titanic, and there is a whole scandal to go along with them. It's not a spoiler if you look at any of the history of it, that they survive. But there's a really interesting, and it is one of those books that I found myself just kind of looking up all these historical facts around it. And that's one of the things that I really love about historical fiction, when it sends me down little trails of learning along the way. But Address of Violet Taffeta is just a fantastic read. And if you do read it and you're curious about any more about it, we do have an interview over in the community with Tessa Arlene, the author, and she talked about her inspiration for the book, where it came from, and a bit of that, which is really fascinating. The Engineer's Wife, this is one of those books that I recommend to so many people, and I talk about it on my blog. I just think it's another like must read if you're interested in women in history. This is about Emily Warren Roebling. She's just kind of one of those women that, she didn't want to lead the typical wife lifestyle. We're post-Civil War era in this. And her husband was working on the Brooklyn Bridge, based on a true story. He had been in the Civil War and is kind of going through some mental issues and difficulties. They have kids and all this, and she ends up taking over the project. Really fascinating book to see. You really feel like you get the insider's view of what it was like to be building something at this massive of a scale without all the machinery that we have today. And then her just being a woman and trying to be in charge of a project at this scale was really, I find it a very inspiring book. There are some liberties taken with some other people in history that you see pop up in the book, but as long as you're aware of that, it didn't bother me too much. But fantastic, both of them. Marigold, we're back to you and your picks.
Well, if you notice, both of them are Lucy Worsley. I am a big fan of hers only because she has a great way of taking history and making it interesting. I love all of her TV shows because I like learning, but her way of demonstrating or presenting, here we go, really keeps me interested. It's just fun. She makes things funny. She'll act things out, have a different costume, and I enjoy the show. So I thought, okay, let's try her books, and these are my two favorite women authors, so I thought, why not? And I loved them. I loved how she goes in pretty depth of what's going on in I was going to say, I don't know which one you start with, but Jane Austen's world, and talking about the homes that she lived in and how they kind of like formed who she was. And then the Agatha Christie one was very enjoyable. It showed how she kind of evolved throughout her life and reinvented herself through the events in her life and her writing. And I love how she kind of pushes the detective novel, because I, as we all know, love Edgar Allan Poe, who was the first person who made the detective story, but I think she kind of fine-tunes it. It makes it like the best. So I enjoyed learning how that developed through her lifetime.
Absolutely. Yeah, two great books. You cannot go wrong with anything, like you said, Lucy Worsley. I rewatch her documentaries. There's a few on YouTube, like just to hear her voice. I find her voice is so soothing, and I feel like I learn a little bit every time because I normally watch it while working, like you do with your stuff. And so you kind of catch a little, ooh, that's really fascinating.
Absolutely. I find her very entertaining. I have a couple of my DVR, so I'm like, I feel like learning something again today.
Absolutely. Mindy, what have you got for us with your picks?
Well, I wanted to go with some fun ones here. So from the Bridgerton series, book 5, this was my favorite from the series. Full disclosure, I knew nothing about Bridgerton until the first season came out on Netflix. And then I was the crazy person who ran out that weekend and bought all of the books in the series and read them, within the next 2 weeks. So whether or not I'm
alone.
Yeah, you're not the only crazy person.
Whether or not I'm qualified to say this is the best one in the series, I don't know. But certainly when I read it, it was my favorite. For our viewers who might be fans of Bridgerton, this is Francesca's story. So I know this isn't happening in season 4, but perhaps they will thread some of it in through season 4 on Netflix. And then maybe she'll get to tell her story in season 5 because it is the 5th book. But yes, when he was wicked, I don't want to do any spoilers here because I feel like if we do get into the content, it will spoil for anybody who hasn't read it yet. But I really did enjoy this one. I think mostly because it was a departure from what the first four brought to the series. So this is my pick from, modern-ish Regency, if you will. So it's semi-historical. And then my second
You're
pick
bringing
is
the life into the party.
What's that?
You're bringing the life into the party with your picks.
I try, just a little bit of spice there. But then we'll go in the opposite direction to The Help by Catherine Stockett. Every time I reread this, I just think it's such a pleasure. And then, of course, anytime I get the opportunity to watch the film, it's just watching again for me, when you get an ensemble cast that is just so talented, pick anybody in that cast, and it is just them at their best performance. So I love this book. I look forward to watching the movie every time after I read it. And if anybody hasn't read it yet, it's so good and definitely worth the time.
Love it.
Okay, now I want to read it because I love that movie so much.
Oh, and it's so close. I think if you've seen the film but you haven't read it, I think you'll kind of marvel at how much they did stay right together.
Yeah, I love that. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
see, we're all adding to our list as we're going through this. All right, I have the mystery of Mrs. Christie. I have to say, I am not the Agatha Christie reader that both of you are. I've read a few. I haven't made it through nearly as many as you guys have enjoyed, but this book I thought was just fantastic. It really just focuses on the, is it 13 days that she was missing? 11. Thank you, Marigold. The 11 days that she was missing. And this book just kind of like, I flew through it so quickly. I really, really enjoyed it. So you don't have to be an Agatha Christie reader to enjoy this book and want to get to know her and her life story a little bit more. Highly recommend. The Magnificent Lives of Marjorie Post. This book is fantastic. I have a theme through my books. I really like women in history that stand out and had unique lives. And this is, if you know, the Post cereal empire, Bird's Eye frozen foods, all these huge empires. Marjorie Post was took over for her father in a time when obviously she couldn't even own the business. So her husband was kind of in control, but she had so many brilliant business ideas that impact our lives today that you probably don't even realize. So I think reading that, and then it is also just kind of, I think, a bit of a sad book with her search for love in her life and being married multiple times, and just kind of you want her to find her happily ever after, but it's her real life story. So you get a bit of that, just what life is like. I think even she had insane amounts of wealth at the time, and it seemed like she had everything, but there's it was a part of life that's missing that money can't buy you. So there's kind of that aspect to it as well, but highly recommend both of those. Marigold, your pick.
I was like, that sounds really familiar. I also really enjoyed the mystery of Mrs. Christie. I do know a lot about her, but I love learning more, and I think the focusing on those 11 days really did spark an interest. I wasn't sure at first because if they were going to put a lot of history in it, but she really did, and I think it worked really well how it was written and had all those little fun facts that many people may not know about her. So I enjoyed this reading.
It felt very plausible for the gaps that she filled in, that it really could be something that happened, even though we will never know. My pick, An American Beauty. This is another amazing woman in history. So this is, again, if you like Gilded Age sort of stuff, this is very much, you're going to get Gilded Age from it. So this is, I'm going to skip and see if there's a little blurb here, but Arabella works in a brothel, I guess we would call it, and meets a very wealthy gentleman who falls in love with her, and she is very entrepreneurial in how she kind of becomes his mistress, and she is he's part of that 400 club that they kind of talk about in Gilded Age. And she, on her own, obviously she's not welcome into the club because she's the mistress on the side, but she becomes actually one of the wealthiest women in America. Fascinating story about her life, and it's kind of one of those you'll do anything for your family sort of stories. So very inspirational. And again, if you want to read something that's going to send you off in history tangents all over the place, that's the perfect book for it. Mindy, what have you got for us?
My final pick is The Stars for Light, and I actually have a Gilbert Morris shelf in my home entirely devoted to this author. When I was a teenager, it might not have been the first historical fiction work that I read, but it was certainly the one that made the first impact on me. This is a series, the Shani Duvall series. Our girl here, Shani, she is a doctor, post-Civil War America. And this particular book takes place when she joins Mercer's Bells, which are the women who left from the East Coast, got on a ship and sailed around to Seattle, where they disembarked so they could marry the men out west. And so she's the doctor. There is a male who goes along with them. His name is Shiloh Irons, and he's the nurse. So it's definitely a flip-flop of the roles that would have been traditional at that time, and she just challenges everything. But Gilbert Morris and his daughter Lynn, who are the authors of this series, they do such an amazing job with not only infusing true historical facts, but also creating these characters and mixing them with personalities who would have been historical figures. So, for instance, Shani's father served in the Union Army under General Ulysses S. Grant. So we do get to see him as a character throughout the series kind of pop up sporadically. And again, as a teenager, that was just so, so enlightening and kind of transported me to this other world, but it was sort of the real world. And I think maybe that's where my love for historical fiction is grounded, is in these Western Christian romances.
It looks so familiar. I swear I might have read that. I read so much. It's very much, is it like would have been in the same kind of shelving as Jeanette Oak?
Yes.
Okay, I'm pretty sure we had those in the library at church, and I read through those. That was a long time ago, but that cover is like coming back to me now. Love those. I love when you have a book that like, just sticks with you too, and it was like memorable from when you read it before. And our book club for March, we are reading Miss Austen. I just got mine from the library today because Marigold and I were talking a little bit earlier. When you lend books out to people and then you can't remember who has your book, and I'm pretty sure my mom has my copy right now. But the library came through, so I've got my Miss Austen. Both of you, do you have your copies yet?
I already read mine and returned it.
Okay, then. Overachiever.
Say that.
It's so good. I couldn't put it down.
I will say I must have a different size than mine. I remembered it being a much chunkier book, and the hardcover is much slimmer, so it doesn't seem like it's going to take too terribly long to get through. But I'm really looking forward to discussing this one with everybody, and especially as we keep getting more and more trailers for Miss Austen as it's going. And I'll have to watch the little bit longer one still that you said we got. So that's going to be exciting as well. And then just a reminder to anyone that we have our book club meeting for Jane Austen's Lost Letters this Saturday at 3 p.m. And I will be there, not with my screen on. So Mindy is actually going to be hosting for us this time, which will be great. And I'm really looking forward to a conversation about this. I think it ended up being a bit of a, not controversial pick, but a different pick than a lot of us expected it to be. So, which can lead to some great conversation. So I'm looking forward to that. So make sure you mark your calendars. And there is a reminder on Patreon as well. And then the Zoom link will be provided for that. So we made it pretty close to 30 minutes. I keep trying to keep it down. But I think it was, as always, make sure I get the right button here, a lot of fun to see the different variety that we all read. And I think we probably have endless recommendations that we could be giving to each other. But so much fun. And I love when we have crossover too, as to what we're enjoying reading. Mindy, I did have one quick question for you. Are you doing a classic audiobook with your son after The Last of the Mohicans that you guys finished? Have you picked anything else up?
So right now it's not a classic. It is Rick Riordan's newest Percy Jackson book, The Wrath of the Triple Goddess. And for anybody who's a fan of Percy Jackson, you know that those, of course, are not classical literature, but they do deal so heavily in Greek mythology that it's all kinds of fun because we end up doing our Greek research outside of the reading. So we're really enjoying this one.
My son loves those books. That's his one author that he still wants to try to meet in person one day. And I always looking to see when he's touring, but he doesn't do that when he tours. So maybe one day we will catch him. And Marigold, do you have any library sales coming up? Do you have anything that's been added to the collection recently?
I don't have a sale, but I think next weekend I have an author's fair, which I'm very excited to go to because one of my friends from high school is actually going to be at the fair. She has books coming out, and I'm looking forward to catching up with her and seeing all of the local artists or local authors.
Yeah, I love that. That'll be a lot of fun. Well, you have to let us know what you find if you get anything new while you're there.
Yes, I will try not to get too many, but we'll see how it goes.
We give you permission to get whatever looks good.
Yes, support local authors.
Exactly. I hope everyone has a good evening, morning, whatever time of the day it is. Thank you again for hanging out with us. Don't forget to let us know what you're reading in the comments, and we will see you again next week. Bye.
Bye.